This next question is one that doesn't come up that often in practice, but that you should understand and that people love to ask about. And it's this. Let's say I currently have x equals 10 and y equals 20. I want to swap these values. How, right? And then why does this work? So the traditional answer in many, many programming languages is to say this, x equals 10 and y equals 20. So then if I want to swap them, I'm going to say now temp equals x. And then I can say here x equals y. And then I can say y equals temp. And sure enough, print, right, we'll say here x equals x and y equals y. And sure enough, now we have swapped them, right? Originally it was x10, y20. Now it's x20, y10. Fantastic. Now, how often do you really want to swap variables? That's another question entirely. But in Python, we don't need to do this. In Python, if I say x equals 10 and y equals 20, I can just swap them in this way, xy equals yx. And now, if I print them out once again, sure enough, they will have swapped. But it's not enough, for, at least for me, to explain that this is the way you could do it. Why does this work? How does this possibly work? So, the key thing is this line, of course. And there's several different parts of this line. So part one is you can define a tuple with commas, not just parentheses. A lot of people think that you need to have parentheses to define tuple. T equals 10, 20, 30. And then if we say, type T, well, type of T is tuple, of course. But what if I take off the parentheses? What do you know? It still works. And if I print T now, it's still a tuple. So you don't really actually need to, you don't really actually need the parentheses there. It's common to use them. It's considered good style to use them, but you don't actually need them there. So that's part one. Part two is we have something known as unpacking. Well, let's do this. Let's actually say, unpacking lets us assign, from a sequence or a sequence to multiple variables. So I can say, for example, my list equals 10, 20, 30. And then I can say x, y, z equals my list. Now, what happens? Well, x is now 10, and y is 20, and z is 30. How did this work? Well, my list has 3 elements. X, Y, Z are 3 variables. And so I assign from my list to x and y and z. Now, you have to be careful that you have the right number. If I say x, comma, y equals my list, bad news. And if you say here w, x, y, z equals my list, also bad news. Once you don't have enough values to unpack, and other times you have too many values to unpack. But in either case, you don't want to do that. Now, Python 3 does allow you to do all sorts of cool stuff with splat, the star. We're not going to get into that here. The point is that if you have the same number of values on the right and variables on the left, you can do this sort of parallel assignment, what's known as unpacking. The third thing to keep in mind is that in assignment, the right side is evaluated first. So if I say, for example, right, x equals len of a, b, c, d, how does this work? Well, first the right side, always right side before left in assignment. So first Python is going to execute len of a, b, c, d. It's going to get back 4. Then that value 4 is going to go into x. So far so good, and sure enough x is now going to be 4. And by the way, it has to work this way, because think about it. What if I say x equals x plus 1? As a mathematical statement, this is nonsense. There is no number for which x is equal to x plus 1. But in programming, equals does not mean these things are equal. In programming, equals means I want to assign to the thing on the left the value I get on the right. So we're going to evaluate the thing on the right, x plus 1, get a value, 5, assign it into x, and then when we ask what x is, 5. That's how this sort of thing works. So if we take all these rules together, the fact that we can define a tuple with commas, not just parentheses, unpacking lets us assign from a sequence to multiple variables, and assignment is right side before left side. Now I can say x equals 10, y equals 20, say xy equals yx. Because what am I doing here? Well, it's assignment. In assignment, it's always right side before left side. Now what happens? We create a tuple. We create a tuple with the values from y and x. We then assign them with unpacking back to x and y, and accordingly we now print x equals x and y equals y, and we have managed to swap them. So that's how you do it, and that's why it works.